I am incredibly lucky to have been alive to witness the 2020 United States election. Apart from all the excitement and controversies surrounding the next resident of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, I am more excited about the most recent legislation that was just passed in Oregon. The legislation consists of decriminalizing all hard drugs. Marijuana was already legalized, but we'll get into that later. But it is a major stepping stone towards decriminalizing all drugs across the country, something I will try to convince you is a valid policy as it will help prevent crime, reduce rates of poverty, and generate tax revenue for the country. Including witnessing the election in real time, I am also incredibly lucky to be majoring in criminal justice at the time of writing this speech, which has allowed me to have a deeper understanding as to how poverty, drugs, and crime are all connected. One of the most popular theories with increasing evidence is the theory that poverty causes crime and crime causes poverty, the latter of which is more easily understandable than the former. The theory bases itself in the understanding that once offenders are arrested, the deck is stacked against them, says Alan Berdziak in a February 7, 2017 article from the Columbia Tribune. They often can't afford bail, so they sit in jail as their cases proceed and usually rely on public defense lawyers to represent them. This is where the problem lies. Offenders get put into the criminal justice system, fines, lawyer, and court fees all stack up to unpayable levels, and as a result, offenders must resort once again to crime in order to survive. Offenders who happen to be drug addicts have it even harder, in my opinion, as their addiction forces them to choose a life of crime rather than a life of rehabilitation. Recidivism is the word to describe a convicted offender reoffending, and with knowledge of how increasing the rates of recidivism are in the United States, it becomes clear that a way to help curb recidivism and lower crime is by decriminalizing the possession of these hard drugs. Now back to just what happened in Oregon. In 2015, Oregon allowed for the use and sale of medical as well as recreational marijuana, but not until 2020 did Oregon fully commit to decriminalizing the possession of small amounts of hard drugs like cocaine, methamphetamine, and heroin. The legislation allows offenders to avoid going to trial and possible jail time by paying a $100 fee and attending an addiction recovery program. Such treatment centers for these programs are funded by revenue from legalized marijuana, says a November 4th, 2020 article from CBS News. By avoiding convictions and having to pay extraneous fees and fines, this allows addicts to help them find help with their addiction, keeps them from returning to crime, and keeps them from becoming instantaneously impoverished due to our current criminal justice system. Since its inception, criminal justice has been focused on punishment when it really should be on rehabilitation instead. When a system insistent on ensuring justice for all greatly disadvantages those without the same financial viability as its elites, that system is ineffective and biased against those who need justice the most. It just sets them up for failure. Thankfully, Oregon has noticed this ongoing injustice and has taken measures to ensure its citizens are rehabilitated rather than needlessly punished. I don't want the genius of the Oregon Drug Initiative to go understated, though. By using revenue generated from marijuana dispensaries, the government avoids using taxpayer and state funding to pay for addiction recovery programs, which is something that appeals to both sides of the political spectrum. According to an October 14th, 2020 article from the Chicago Tribune, Illinois has collected more than $100 million in recreational marijuana tax revenue since legalizing sales on January 1st of 2020. On the next slide, you can see that Oregon boasted similar tax revenues in 2019 and has increased by $33 million in 2020. Additionally, I think that using some of this revenue to pay former addicts to become mentors in drug rehabilitation programs would not only provide economic stimulation, but also increase the effectiveness of drug rehabilitation programs, as addicts are more likely to relate and understand former addicts than therapists or doctors. If the federal government were to take the reins on nationwide marijuana legalization and drug decriminalization, then thousands of similar addiction programs could be available for millions of more people, preventing poverty, decreasing crime, and generating revenue for the country. Is it something that's going to happen soon? Hopefully so with our most recent election, but we'll have to wait and see.